An intense and fruitful scientific exchange among the three began: Adolf Hurwitz, David Hilbert, and Mr. Minkowski. And Minkowski and Hilbert especially would exercise a reciprocal influence over each other at various times in their scientific careers. Hilbert obtained his doctorate in 1885 with a dissertation written under Ferdinand von Limited titled this is translation, on the invariant properties of special binary forms, in particular the spherical harmonic functions. Now I'll read that in German. On the invariant properties of special binary forms, in particular the spherical harmonic functions. And here it is in the original language. Über invariante Eigenschaften spezieller binärer Formen, insbesondere der Kugelfunktionen. And now in a southern accent. Über invariante Eigenschaften spezieller binärer Formen, insbesondere der Kugelfunktionen. Hilbert, David Hilbert, the mathematician, remained at the University of Königsberg as a private docent, that is, a senior lecturer from 1886 to 1885. I'd like to do less biography and more mathematics. Thank you very much. In 1892, Hilbert married Kathy Jarosch, the daughter of a Königsberg merchant, an outspoken young lady with an independence of mind that matched his own. While, I guess she didn't like watching soap operas. While at Königsberg, they had one child, Franz Hilbert. And Franz in German means France, or Francis. If you want to make a guy tough, just give him a girl's name, like Francis or Leslie. I guarantee the guy will grow up to be a tough as nails man's man. In 1895, as a result of intervention on behalf of Felix Klein, he obtained the position of professor of mathematics at the Universität of Göttingen, and that time the best research center for mathematics in the world. How could it be better than London? He remained there for the rest of his life. His son Franz suffered throughout his life from an undiagnosed mental illness. His inferior intellect, oh, that sounds so judgmental. His inferior intellect was a terrible disappointment to his father, and this misfortune was a matter of distress to the mathematicians and students at Göttingen. Minkowski, Hilbert's best and truest friend, died prematurely of a ruptured bazungi in 1909. What the hell is a bazungi? Well, this is G-rated. Suffice it to say, every woman has one. The Mathematical Institute in Göttingen. I'd show you this picture, but it might be copyrighted. I don't want to be sued. So, it's new building constructed. You know what? Jesus said that if we want to do his thing, we should visit the imprisoned. That's one thing I don't do. I mean, I hang around with the poor, and I feed them when they need feeding. But, something just come to me. I'm gonna have to start going to prisons and visit prisoners, because I want to go to heaven and stuff. But anyways, now I'm being serious. I am a Christian. Sometimes I have doubts, but remember, 1,000 doubts don't add up to one unbelief. His son, friends, people say, well, prove God exists and I'll believe. Well, first of all, if I proved that God exists, you would need belief because you'd have knowledge. And secondly, they always ask for scientific proof of God's existence. And by definition, God is beyond time and space. And by definition, the scientific method is limited to observation. And we can only observe stuff that's in the space-time continuum. So there's no way to give scientific proof of God. The existence of God can be proven beyond a reasonable doubt in like a courtroom situation. If you took the best and brightest of theists, that is believers, and be they Jewish, Christian, Judeo-Christian, or Islam, they could prove in a court of law the existence of God if they had 12 intelligent, educated, open-minded jurors who would arrive at their decision on the basis of the evidence. Of course, you could always just ask God for the gift of faith. And if you really want it, and you're asking from a sincere and humble heart, He will give it to you. Anyways, so now I got my plug in for the Lord upstairs. Lord, all right, hopefully I'll get a higher position in heaven when I leave this valley of tears. Okay, Professor David Hilbert remained at Göttingen for the rest of his life. Göttingen. I wonder if you translated that into English. I wonder what that would be. Is there some words you can't translate, like names and stuff? Anyways, David Hilbert's son Franz suffered throughout. Oh, we already read that. Okay, the Göttingen school. You know what? I'm going to go through these. I'm going to skip this and go to Hilbert's later years. What time do we have, boys? Okay, I'm going to end this at 10 minutes. We got about 3.5 minutes left. Hilbert lived to see the Nazis purge many of the prominent faculty members of the University of Göttingen in 1933. Them forced out included Hermann Weil, who had taken Hilbert's chair when he retired in 1930. You know, instead of taking his chair, I would have given him a lazy boy. Emmy Noether and Edmund Landau. One who had to leave Germany, Paul Bernays, had collaborated with Hilbert in mathematical logic and co-authored with him the important book Grundlagen der Mathematik, which eventually appeared in 2 volumes in 1934 and 1939. This was a sequel to the Hilbert Ackermann book, Principles of Mathematical Logic, from 1928. About a year later, Hilbert attended a banquet and was seated next to the new Minister of Education, Bernhard Rust. Rust asked, "How is mathematics in Göttingen now that it has been freed of the Jewish influence?" Hilbert replied, "Mathematics in Göttingen, there is really none anymore." By the time Hilbert died in 1943, the Nazis had nearly completely restaffed the university, inasmuch as many of the former faculty had either been Jewish or married to Jews. Hilbert's funeral was attended by fewer than a dozen folk, only 2 of whom were fellow academics, among them Arnold Sommerfeld, a theoretical physicist and also a native of Königsberg. News of his death only became known to the wider world 6 months after he had died. Hilbert was baptized and raised in the Reformed Protestant Church. Was he a secret Jew? He later on left the church and became an agnostic. He also argued that mathematical truth was but he was so smart. With the name David. David was a very unusual name for a German Christian to have back then. I think Hilbert, like a lot of others, Jews, that his parents, because Jews had less human rights than Christians back then, and they were more limited, I think they I don't even think they were allowed at the university. I think they deliberately, they legally changed to Christianity, converted, so that they could, a career move. Anyways, Hilbert was baptized and raised in the Reformed Protestant Church. He later on left the church and became an agnostic. He also argued that mathematical truth was independent of the existence of God or other a priori assumptions. The epitaph on his tombstone in Göttingen consists of the famous lines he spoke at the conclusion of his retirement address to the Society of German Scientists and Physicians in the fall of 1930. And this video will conclude. The words were given in response to the Latin maxim, ignoramus et ignorabimus, or we do not know, we shall not know. And this is Göttingen's, Hilbert's epitaph on his tombstone, translated into English. When I die, bury me deep. Make it short and make it cheap. And on my tombstone I want wrote, 10,000 drinks went down my throat, and if you should pass by where I lie, piss on me, I'm always dry.